Crowhill here. Today we review an IPA and ask, why are we all so sick and fat? Hey, good evening, Bigwig.
Hey, good evening, Fancy Meeting.
How's it going?
You're okay. How about some beer and conversation?
Oh, that's a great idea. What are we drinking?
This is a light IPA.
Light IPA.
Yes,
Fantastic.
yeah,
That's very good.
Very good. So, what's on your mind?
Well, I was thinking today about, remember that warning that Einstein gave? Einstein warned us about the physics industrial complex.
I mean, there's something familiar in the end part there, and there's some rhyming going on. I think you mean Eisenhower and the military. The military
yeah, that's it.
complex.
No, right, Eisenhower, the president.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he warned us about the military. That's okay. That's
Yes,
it. It's not the physics
idea,
industrial complex.
right, that it's going to sort of capture the economy.
Right. And it's going to, because we're going to, because they want to keep building more and more weapons, they're going to get us into more wars.
That's going to drive us towards.
Yeah. Well, a lot of people have sort of taken that to heart and think about that from time to time. But how come we don't think about the pharma industrial complex or the food industrial complex or the chemical industrial complex?
Yes. Wouldn't they also want to influence public opinion and and government?
Yeah.
Contracts
to tobacco
in their favor.
Yeah. So whenever an organization, whenever an industry gets to a certain size, it has the ability to influence public policy and law and everything else.
What's the thing? Like an organization starts with a specific goal.
Yeah.
Until its goal just becomes to perpetuate itself.
That's right.
Right. I mean, it doesn't matter who you are.
But first, let's
lighten up this topic with a light beer.
Yes. So 30-minute light IPA.
So I got a 12-pack variety pack from Dogfish Head.
Yeah.
And the 4 beers were the 30-minute IPA, a 60-minute IPA, a 75-minute IPA, and a 90-minute IPA.
There you go.
Is that how long you take to drink one? Or what,
I hope not. Yeah. So it means how long they boil it.
Right.
And so that affects a couple things. It affects the longer you boil it, the more water you boil off, so the stronger it gets. And it also affects hop utilization the longer you boil it.
Because it's a continuous hop method.
Yeah,
right?
And that's the thing where they took one of those old football games.
The vibrating table?
Vibrating table, and they put the hops on it with boo boo and like continuously add a little bit of hops to the boil.
Right. Why then would they also increase in alcohol strength? You're not telling me that the longer you put hops in a beer, the stronger the beer gets.
No, it's not the hops. It's the longer it's boiling off water. So if you're boiling off water, it's getting it's a higher concentration of sugars in the wort. So then higher concentration of sugar turns into more alcohol.
Right. Well, and you have to have, if you're going to put more hops in, you got to balance the beer with more malt, and that's going to give you the more sugar, and so you get a stronger beer.
But what gets kind of lost in this whole thing is I really doubt they're using the same recipe for the 30, 60, 75, and 90 and all that. So
that's in case you're wondering what numbers mean on the case.
It just means how long it's boiled.
And I've never seen a 30. Have you?
No, I haven't either.
No.
I haven't seen a 30.
All right, so we'll get in there and tell me what you think. It's we're expecting. It's a light beer, 4%, 95 calories. You would expect this to be, in order to call it an IPA. Otherwise, it's just a light pale ale.
Yeah, it's nice. It has a little bit of that dank hop sort of flavor to it.
Well, that's probably the idea.
But in terms of being a light beer, I think it's very nice. It's got more flavor than you expect. It's only got 95 calories in it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, 95 calories, 4%. That's a lovely fishing beer. Or
I think RFK would probably approve of this as a healthy beer.
Exactly. This
healthy alternative to the 90 minutes.
We'll see if Cali Means says good on that one. I don't know, but it's good. Well done. I mean, Dogfish Head makes great stuff. And I think to some extent, the 30, 60, 75, 90 thing is just a gimmick. In what it really signals is strength.
Yes,
but to some extent it's a little gimmicky because you could just throw more hop or throw more malts in early and get a somewhat similar effect. But anyway, yeah, so very good. All right, so this Make America Healthy Again has become surprisingly a big thing on the Republican side.
It's become, and it might be, I've got some good information about what's going on at the state level.
Okay.
it might be about the only thing that coming out of this administration where both sides can get in a bipartisan issue going on these days.
Well, you would think, although I saw a clip of Senator Kennedy, not Senator Kennedy, the Kennedy of MAHA, getting grilled by some senator, and he was saying, look, Senator, you wanted to get food dyes out of food. I did it in 40 days. What are you yelling at me for? You know, maybe I should get some credit here. So it's funny because a lot of the things that they're trying to do are things that Democrats have been wanting to do for a long time. Right. But it's the Trump derangement syndrome. If Trump is doing it, it must be bad. So
exactly.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the problem. How great it is that it's getting some attention, and why it's taken so long for it to get attention. So, what are the things that nobody's really cared about? And when you hear the numbers, you're like, why haven't we been talking about this?
Exactly. Yeah.
Till we're blue in the face for years. It's like you can see all of these spiking numbers. Do you have some numbers available?
So there's been a 270% increase in obese kids since the 70s.
I knew one fat kid.
I know.
I still remember his name because he was the only fat kid in the school.
Yeah,
Robert Jenkins.
There were no fat kids. Well. There were no fat kids in school.
No, it's just
because you ran around all the time, and you know. So childhood obesity is a huge problem. Apparently, right now for children 5 to 19, the rate in the U.S. is double that of the other G7 countries.
Okay.
Which means they're probably still fat over there. We're just even fatter. Diabetes is shooting through the roof. Way too much diabetes.
I just thought that was like.
That's poor old person. People. Yeah, that's poor old fat people disease. But now so many people have this diabetes.
That's down into childhood.
Right. Jeez. Yeah. And then neurodevelopmental disorders. So the autism is one of the things. Oh. ADHD. We have way more. So autism used to be 1 in 10,000 in 1960. Now it's 1 in 31.
I had never heard of it.
Yeah.
You
never heard of
until,
autism.
I don't know, 10 years ago maybe.
Now, what some people will say is, we're just getting better at measuring it.
Yes, and that accounts for some of it. But you go from 31 to 10,000, it doesn't account for all of it.
No, I'll give you some of that.
Yeah, I'll give you
some of that, but I'm not giving you all of it from just better check. And then childhood cancer, which, I mean, it breaks your heart to think of kids with cancer, but childhood cancer has increased by over 40% since 1975. And then on top of all that, we have a mental health problem. Like depression among teens is skyrocketing.
You're a teenager.
Suicide deaths.
What are you depressed about?
I know. Yeah. It's really strange. So autoimmune disorders, allergies, all these things are increasing. And I get back to what you said before. Who was paying attention? Did nobody, was nobody at the switch? Did nobody say, hey, wait a minute, something's going wrong. We should check on this.
These numbers didn't just become available.
Right. These numbers have been around for a long time. And you'd think that somebody would notice and say, hey, wait a minute, something's going in the wrong direction. We need to change this. Yeah. But it doesn't get any attention until just recently. And then you think Kennedy and his group of people are trying to do some studies and figure out what's going on. And people are opposing it. How could you oppose it? They want to figure out, why are we having this enormous health problem? Did you know that right now, something like 75% of kids who could be old enough to go in the Army are ineligible for military service because they're too fat, they're too
They can't do one chin up.
Yeah, they don't have the strength. They have serious health conditions.
Can't run around the track once.
Right. I mean, that is a serious problem.
Yes. Remember the presidential fitness thing? That was this. Do we stop
John
doing
F. Kennedy started doing that. Yeah, I don't know, but now it's probably just like if you do one push-up and you.
Yeah, or they just said, why bother? Kids don't feel like doing that. There's no recess. There's no mandatory gym class.
Yeah, I remember when we were kids, the presidential fitness thing wasn't horribly tough, but it was a little tough.
Yeah, and it was kind of fun to see where you ranked amongst your classmates. And
right, how many pull-ups you could do and all that kind of stuff. Yeah.
The broader problem.
Yeah.
Not talking about the problem.
Yeah.
Well, is part of it because we have been cowed into silence by people in lab coats going, who am I to say, right? These guys already know what's best for me, and when they tell me to change my behavior, I guess I will, and nobody's going to push back on these guys. And because of COVID, they lost some of the credibility.
Yeah.
And that maybe now is that window that people are just going to go, yeah, what are you guys doing?
Yeah.
I don't trust the FDA to do the right thing. I don't trust the CDC to do the right thing.
Yeah.
Instead of just standing around going, well, you guys know better. Trust the science. That it's opened that window for somebody to go and say, what are you guys doing?
That's part of it. I think another possible part of it is we have this idea of, no more body shaming. No more making fun of kids because they're fat. No more
encouraging a healthy weight and exercise is fat phobic.
Yes.
Right.
Right. Yeah. So you can't, like, if you take your kid to the doctor and the doctor says, "Kid, you need to get out on your bicycle. You need to play basketball. You need to run around a little bit more." The mom's going to say, "How dare you?" Blah blah blah. So what's the doctor going to do? The doctor's going to say, "Okay, here, take these pills."
Yeah. Yeah. And so then, talking about big pharma, is big pharma driving the medical industry, and so that it pushes, drugs and surgery over nutrition and healthy food choices.
Well, this is why I wanted to bring up the military-industrial complex, because everybody kind of gets the idea that some people might want war because it's good for their weapons sales, right?
Yeah.
I mean, what a horrible thing to think, right?
It really is
it's a horrible thing to think that you would want to kill all these people, maim all these people, destroy cultures, do all this stuff,
right? So that Boeing can
so they can sell more jets or something, right? I mean, it's a horrible thing to think, but it seems to be there's some truth to it. There's at least some truth to it. So
why not?
It's also hard. Yeah, exactly. In exactly the same way, it's horrible to think that a drug company would say, "Yeah, so what? Kids are getting hurt by this. We're making better profits." But we've seen it happen. We saw it happen with the opioid issue, right? We saw it happen with cigarettes.
Yeah.
We know that companies can be that way, and so to some extent, it's big pharma, it's big food, it's big chemical, it's all these companies.
I understand that. Nutrition is not really emphasized in medical school.
Right. Yeah.
That's not part of nutrition and the preventative nature of the medical training.
Yeah.
Yeah. We got a pill for that.
Yeah.
And who's benefiting from we have a pill for that? Well,
the pharma companies.
Which I am generally
extraordinarily thankful for pharma companies. They're doing all these great things. They're making these great drugs.
And if they can't make a profit, it takes you 10 years. You're going to not make money for 10 years in the hopes that you have some life-saving drug, and then you produce it, and then you make a bunch of money, and then people are mad about you making money, and I'm like, I don't know.
All my life, people told me that getting a root canal was a horrible experience.
Right.
The drugs are so good, I didn't feel a thing. I mean, it was just boring sitting there in the chair while they were digging away at my root canal.
Yes, whenever I look at, whenever I romanticize about cowboy movies, I think of one thing: anesthesia.
Yes, isn't it nice?
It's like my main reason for not wanting to live before 1900.
Yeah, here, bite on this stick while we dig this bullet out of your side. Yeah, so
thank you, pharmaceutical companies.
Thank you, pharmaceuticals, for oxytocin and all that kind of stuff. I mean, they're wonderful drugs. They're amazing, but at the same time, we've got to deal with this evil, greedy, capitalist stuff where yes, people will sacrifice public health, sacrifice public safety so that they can turn a profit. And it's a horrible thing to think. But
well, let's go. Yeah, we got big pharma. What about big food?
Right.
What about our crappy food supply, which is on the list of the four?
What are the four causes?
All right.
So we got four possible. We got poor diet and ultra processed foods.
Yes.
We've got the aggregation of environmental chemicals.
Yes.
Lack of physical activity and chronic stress, and over-medicalization. Those are the four things that the MAHA report pulled out as these are the main drivers of all these problems that we talked about before.
Right. Okay, so poor diet, ultra-processed foods. I remember, gosh, they were terrible, but I don't know. I found them kind of exciting. The TV dinner of the 70s.
Yeah.
But it just came out, and you took the aluminum foil off, and you put it on a TV tray in front of the TV.
Yes.
And, I mean, that was really the beginning of the end.
Yeah, but one thing that
the Salisbury steak,
Yeah, it wasn't great food, but it was easy.
It was easy.
But
right
what's interesting is in a way, that was better than what we have today because there was no plastic and nothing. It was all metal, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I will get to that. So, ultra processed means how far away it is from its
natural food.
State.
Yeah.
Right.
What
so
have
it
they
doesn't
done
just
to
mean
it?
that. I mean, if you get a can of peas, well, it's really just peas in a can.
Yeah.
There's not much going on there.
Right.
And then.
But then you have other foods where if
you're going to get a frozen burrito.
And they've added all these chemicals to make it have a better shelf life,
Yeah.
or to make it look better, right? So they put in colors, and they put in other things. They put in more sugar and more salt to make it taste better.
Yeah.
So apparently, if you take American Fruit Loops and the Fruit Loops they sell in Britain or something like that, the American Fruit Loops are way more colorful because we allow some of these colors that they don't allow in England. So it's that kind of stuff.
But they taste the same.
I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it's just the color. It's just, they're not as bright. And of course, each of the individual colors don't taste different from each other.
Well,
it's just visually more appealing.
I heard recently about this study where if you give somebody a bowl of M&Ms and they're all the same color, and then you give somebody a bowl of mixed color M&Ms, they taste exactly the same. There's no taste difference. But
what are you going to do?
You'll eat more of the multicolored ones.
Yes, you will.
Yeah. So it's the same thing with the Fruit Loops and everything else. If they make it more visually appealing, you're going to eat more. And what does a company that's trying to sell cereal want? They want you to eat it every day, and they want you to eat more of it.
All right, so talk about captivating an industry, big food.
Yeah.
The stupid food pyramid, which was driven by the cereal grains company, or big grain.
Yeah.
And the idea that breakfast is the most important meal of the day.
Right.
I never eat breakfast.
Yeah.
I get, an hour into work, I get a cup of yogurt and some nuts, and then I eat lunch.
Yeah.
But so once you've established, nobody's going to get eggs and bacon and fruit and everything. You need a quick breakfast. Cereal. Here we got it for you.
Yeah.
Here it is. Here's cereal. You gotta have an important meal. This has all the lists of all the vitamins that are in there. Yeah. It's terrible for you.
And not only that, they increased the number of servings you're supposed to get. I don't know if you remember this, but when we were kids, there was this commercial. It was one of these public service announcement kind of commercials about the food pyramid as existed back then.
Yes.
And it was 4, 4, 3, and 2, the groups of food best for you. Remember that?
Yeah.
And it was like 4 grains, and then 3, and then dairy, and then 2 this, and 1 meat, or something like this, fruits and whatever. But it was total number of servings was 4, 4, 3, and 2 is 8, 11, 13, and then now the new food pyramid comes out, and it's like 17 servings of this. You're like, what in the world? How am I supposed to eat all of that?
No, it's ridiculous. And the fact that the bottom of the pyramid
is processed grains.
It's processed grains.
Yes. Yeah. And that apparently had nothing to do with health. It had everything to do with promoting the food. And now I heard an interesting conversation about this, where if you look historically at food and agriculture policy, 100 years ago, the thing that was important was to make sure that people were getting enough calories. There were people who were starving. There were people who did not get enough food.
Yes, in a way, it's a bit of a victim of its own success.
Yes,
it says we need to provide cheap calories of food that does not go bad, shelf life, and calories in the bodies of poor people. The problem was low caloric intake.
Yeah, you had a bunch of people who just weren't strong enough. You look at it from a strategic point of view. You need to have a healthy population so that if you have a war, you can draft 1 million people, you know?
Yeah.
And you have all these
We're
people who are
expanding west. We need people who can build railroads.
That's right. We need some strong people. So exactly what you said. There needs to be high calorie, it needs to have a shelf life, and it needs to be cheap so that we can get it out to everybody. Well, they succeeded at that. Succeeded fantastically at that.
And then so they got
from that
high on their own
perspective,
supply.
yeah, from that perspective, well done, guys.
Yes.
But then now what we're left with is basically junk food. So we have all this junky food that doesn't give you enough nutrition.
Right.
And it's just, you know, feeding you these empty calories, and it's causing a lot of these health problems.
And apparently that these empty calories, I don't know by design or not, I wouldn't put it past anybody, are less satisfying or intentionally less satisfying.
So that you eat more.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Remember, you know, like when we started supersizing everything, like before then, there was only one size. Oh, you had an 8-ounce Coke and one size French fry, and you know that was the meal. And a
little hamburger.
Yeah, a little hamburger.
Right.
And everybody understood. Okay, you eat that, and you're done.
Yeah.
And
now it's like
64
double
ounce.
quarter pounders, 64-ounce Cokes, and yeah.
Yes.
So we did, because if you're trying to sell food, upselling just that little bit increases your profit margin substantially.
Yeah.
So Supersize Me, you know, remember that documentary about Supersize Me? Yeah. So if you're trying to make more money, well, why don't you just upgrade? You know, instead of giving a 12-ounce soda, I can give you a 24-ounce soda for 10 cents more.
Yeah.
You know, and that's perfectly good deal for the food company because the soda costs them almost nothing.
And I don't know what it is, just I'm just cheap or whatever, but I hate throwing food away.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah,
I guess I better eat it.
I know it. I really don't need the rest of those fries. What am I going to do? Throw them in the trash? You know?
Yes.
So
we are to some extent a victim of our own success, but at the same time, the food companies are intentionally making not very nutritious food much more appealing, putting more salt, putting more sugar, putting more color, fancy packaging, everything else, so that we're eating a bunch of junk.
Yeah.
And, you know, we'd be better off making fresh food and eating, you know.
Yes. So, well, we'll get to pesticides later, but let me just say there is a level of trade-off that we are willing to experience, that cheap, abundant food is better than expensive food and a lot of spoilage.
Yes.
So, why aren't we we have to have levels of, I mean, in order for all of us to have vegetables available, we need to have, you know, pesticides and herbicides and whatever sides to make sure the fruit gets to market.
Well, to make the volume of food, because farmers have done an amazing job of figuring out ways to make their fields more productive. They get more yield per acre because there's less rot in the field.
Yeah.
There's less, you know,
and
storm damage.
And
all these things, they've figured out ways to solve all that stuff. But the consequence of that has been less nutritious food with more chemicals, with other kinds of things in it. And, you know, when they package it, they need to put preservatives and everything else. And that stuff is getting into our systems.
So I see when I see ultra processed, I think about those delicious frozen burritos that I enjoy so much.
Yeah.
And all of the ingredients on there. And I'm like, I mean, this stuff's been processed at the door. But if you look at, let's just say, fast food, which, you know, it's got a bad reputation.
Yeah.
But hold on, I got my...
Is a McDouble from McDonald's really more processed than a frozen burrito? I'm not so sure. I don't know. At least it's got real beef in it, right?
Yes, but I would think that there is a Chick-fil-A, which as a reputation, I think of it as one of the better fast foods.
Yeah.
And then you look at a sandwich, like as opposed to my delicious frozen chimichanga,
okay,
it's a piece of chicken on bread.
Yeah.
What could go wrong?
Okay. 55 ingredients in a Chick-fil-A sandwich.
No.
Okay.
What is going on?
So the chicken itself is chicken, of course.
Yeah, it is.
Salt, MSG, sugar, spices and paprika.
Okay, I'm
Why,
okay
why
with
is
those.
paprika separated from spices? I don't get that.
Yeah.
Okay. So you got chicken, salt, MSG, sugar, spices, paprika. So couldn't it just be like chicken and spices? How
Right,
about
so
that?
here we've got 15 ingredients on the coating.
Oh wow, the coating.
And some of the
MSG again.
Yeah.
Milk,
I mean,
baking soda.
there's a few things that are innocuous,
Sodium
spices
aluminum phosphate. What the heck is that? Right? Yeah.
and then we've got what do we have?
The bun.
here?
Oh my
We've got
gosh.
16 ingredients in
And the reason
bun.
they do that is so the bun will last longer, right? They stick in
Yes.
all this
Wait a
other
minute.
junk. Oh, here we go.
Here's my
King's
Hawaiian
Hawaiian.
Kings roll from November 2023.
Yeah, and
Feel
it's
that.
still soft. It's
Pretty
still
nice.
soft. Actually, King's Hawaiian rolls are delicious.
They are delicious, but they should not last
they should
2
not.
years.
No. Well, that's a big thing. I saw this interesting show on bread and bread culture.
Right.
Like if you're in Italy, it's just part of the culture. You go and you buy your bread every day.
You buy right. You buy bread every day. You eat pasta every day, and you're not a big fatty.
Part of it is because you're walking around to the bread store every day.
Good.
But still,
Good.
but you're
Good
eating
idea.
you're eating bread that doesn't have all this other garbage in it. So maybe your body processes it a little better.
We got 5 ingredients in the bun oil.
Wow. Soybean, palm, soy lecithin, the natural flavor, beta carotene. And then the pickles. Holy smokes! What's in the pickles?
How do you get? What are they putting yellow and blue? Why are they putting? Look, yellow and blue make green. You got to make pickles green with artificial coloring.
Yeah.
So,
It sounds like it should just be a simple thing. It's just chicken and bread and some pickles and some sauce. That should be an easy thing. But
how do you get to 55 ingredients?
Wow.
So,
Yeah.
I mean, that can't be good.
Well, it's because they have got to transport it. It's got to stay good in the store. It's got to.
That's what I'm saying now. We've got to strike the balance. We have to recognize that there's got to be some of this, or you're either going to you're going to increase the price, or just simply reduce the availability of things. It's not going to get to everyone.
Yeah.
And is that better? So don't we have manageable thresholds? Look at. You may not think this by looking at me, but this is at least a couple million years worth of evolution that you're looking at here. My body is built, to take small amounts of anything.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? How much dirt do you eat a year?
Sure,
Or whatever. There's arsenic in apples.
Yeah.
But so don't eat 3 bushels of apples a day.
Yeah.
So there's amounts of pesticide that I'm sure our bodies are fine with.
But there, a lot of these things, it's the problem when they do studies on the effect of some chemical is in order to speed up, they don't just give you the amount that you're actually going to get exposed to. They give you way, way, way more, or they give the rats way, way, way more
Yeah.
to find out what happens. And a lot of times these things aren't linear. It's like a low exposure does almost nothing, and a high exposure does way, way worse, right?
A low exposure for 30 years.
But it depends on what it is.
Yeah.
Some things, low exposure for 30 years will kill you, and other things, low exposure for 30 years.
You're right. Your body just flushes it out.
Yeah,
and,
that's why you have a liver and everything.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah. So, what you were saying about all these ingredients in this thing, it reminded me of something you told me about being in Mexico.
Yeah.
That don't they have the food is much fresher? They're making it.
Yeah. No, everybody. Yeah, you just go. You just go to the store every day, and you don't have big freezers, and you don't. Now it's probably getting worse now that they have a Sam's Club. And,
yeah.
So I went to Sam's Club in Puerto Vallarta. My wife's sister works at Sam's Club.
Yeah.
And he went in there, and I was like, never seen so many gringos in Mexico. All my life.
All in one
I didn't know there were that many. It was like
They all
25%.
flock to the Sam's Club. Yeah. But it would be better, it would be healthier if we prepared fresh food, but that takes a lot of work. And this also ties back into other things. Like if you have a stay-at-home mom who can be cooking fresh food for the family every day, then that takes a whole lot of time and a whole lot of effort. But if you want mom at work doing marketing, then she can't be doing that.
Yeah, exactly. She walks in the door at 5:45. Everybody's hungry, and
dinner's got to be ready in 45 minutes.
You just start grabbing packaged things and do your best.
That's right. So that's another contributing factor, is just the change in our culture where we don't have the time to go buy fresh food and spend the time it takes to cook fresh food. To prepare.
Or we're still on poor diet. Okay. Cumulative exposure to chemicals, well, food additives and pesticides. You know, we've included that in.
And it's astonishing the extent to which apparently everybody has in their brain like a credit card's worth of plastic or something like that.
All right. Well, yeah. Well, that's that. Yeah. I said food additives and pesticides. Yeah. Well, let's talk about these microplastics. And what about? I do it all the time, but I am a little squeamish about microwaving food in a plastic container.
Yeah, I don't do that anymore.
Yeah. I have.
I don't even use the plastic cutting board anymore.
Oh, no kidding.
I use a metal cutting board.
That sounds noisy.
Well, it's actually, I'm thinking it dulls the knives, but it doesn't put plastic in my food.
Right. What about just... So I've come to having a ceramic mug to heat things in, but I still store it in plastic.
Sure.
And take the plastic, and then I don't know. Is there,
you can't avoid plastic. If you tried to avoid plastic, there's plastic all through the whole chain. You try to go buy a steak; it's wrapped in plastic. Everything you get has been touched by plastic multiple times. So there are certain things that are better or worse. Like there's better and there are worse plastics, but there's also cooking it in plastic is worse than it just being stored in plastic. Yeah. So, it's a mixed bag. And apparently some plastics put more plastic in the food than other plastics do.
All right, number 3. We have, what's your number 3? Physical activity and chronic stress and screen time.
Yeah, and not enough sleep.
Enough sleep.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this is
and this is another area where who was paying attention? We're going to give kids these computers and they're going to have these cell phones and they're going to be on these things. I heard a statistic that kids are on their cell phones 8 hours a day.
Oh, God.
Can you believe that? And
yeah, and then we're like, what? They don't have any friends? There's a problem with loneliness?
Yeah, right. And their eyesight's bad and they don't do any physical activity. So yeah, was anybody paying any attention to this and thinking maybe this isn't the greatest idea?
I don't remember the PSAs about
not spending so much time on the stupid phone.
Yeah.
And also, once again, just as we have the military industrial complex and the food industrial complex and everything else, we have the cell phone industrial complex. Yeah. Their whole business is about getting you on that thing more and more and more.
Yes, and what about the radiation from the thing?
Sure.
And I'm not one that's worried about Wi-Fi sickness or whatever, but there is radiation coming off of a phone when it charges.
Yes,
and maybe you shouldn't have it near your junk in your pocket all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe does that have anything to do with our
drop in sperm count?
The drop in testosterone, but I've started long before the pocket cell phone in the pocket. But
that's another one. That's another one where you wonder who the heck was in charge. Why was nobody paying attention to the fact that sperm count and testosterone have been dropping precipitously for 50 years?
Feminists.
Nobody's even paying attention.
Yeah.
And so we're told all the time we're supposed to trust the public health authorities and we're supposed to trust the experts. The experts are morons. They haven't been doing anything.
But that's male-centered and nobody cares.
I know, nobody cares. Yeah, men are disposable.
How about the over-medication and vaccines?
Yeah, well, think of how many kids get diagnosed as ADHD. Where what they really need is to go outside and run around a little bit.
Yeah.
So you have kids, boys especially, who are put in an environment where they're told to sit still and act like a little girl for 6 hours.
Yeah.
And what they need to do is get up and get around and move and fight and, go play football. And then maybe they can sit around and listen to math for a little while.
Back then, it was just cowboys got ants in the pants.
Yeah.
And now he needs medication.
And when the guy got ants in the pants, you just say, run around the block and come back and sit down. And that solved the problem.
I saw this video of a kid standing at the door, pounding on the door. His punishment was to go outside and play.
He didn't know what to do.
Do you remember being prohibited from going outside as a punishment?
No.
Now, no, from going outside. That was the punishment. Now it's being outside.
That's the punishment?
That's the punishment. Yeah, no, before it was, you're not going out with your friends. You're staying in all evening. Hey, everybody's out having fun. And this kid's going, there's nothing to do out here. Staring at you. How's this happen in one generation? Well, that's how it's happening.
I remember spending hours in my backyard just figuring out how to make a bow out of, the stuff in the yard and shooting at squirrels and
I
remember.
Right. I remember getting like a black ant and putting it in the red ant colony and see if they would fight.
Right. All kinds of things to do. There's so many things to do. But yeah, I heard Joe Rogan say the other day, he talks about people being bored, and he's like, how in the world could you possibly be bored? There are so many things to learn. There's so many things to do. Pick up an instrument. Learn to play the guitar. Read a book. Find some. Do something. There's so many things that you can do in life. How can you be bored? But
it doesn't involve a screen.
Yes, but now people are so addicted to their screens. Everything else is boring, and they just don't do anything.
So so we're overprescribing. Gosh, what are you drugging your children for?
I know. Come on.
And so.
Did you see the thing where? Sorry to interrupt. Did you see the thing where Tom Cruise was talking to the guy about giving Ritalin to kids?
Yeah.
And it was like 30 years ago or something. And Tom Cruise is like, do you even know what Ritalin is and what it does? This is street drugs.
He would not let Matt Lauer, that's who it was. He would not let Matt Lauer skate by.
No.
Well, there are certain, medical agencies that think that, do you even hear what you're saying, Matt? Do you know what you're talking about? Because you don't.
Yeah.
And I do. And he really said it straight.
It was amazing.
And it was about medicating kids.
Yes.
And so the vaccine schedule. So I remember what's the MMR, the muscles and
measles, mumps, rubella.
Yeah. So that's that. We stopped getting because my older brother has the scar.
Yeah. I don't.
No. It was right between us.
Yeah.
They had so everybody of us.
Did they put it in with a chisel or something?
I don't know.
How did I get a scar?
Looks harsh.
Yeah,
I do remember standing in line at the elementary. This long line,
and all these kids walking by crying,
and you're just waiting for your turn, and just tears.
Yes.
Yeah, those are the good old days. Anyway, but it was what? It was 3 vaccines.
Yeah. And now it's 27, I think, now.
Shut up.
Counting the ones that the mother gets while she's pregnant.
Okay.
So the infant is exposed to 27 different vaccines from in utero to the age of 1. And some of these things are things that could have been delayed until they were older, like things about sexually transmitted diseases and other kinds of things that, okay, maybe the vaccine's necessary. It's not necessary when they're 2 months old.
Yes.
Or so maybe you could just delay them or spread them out, do something. So
but boy, that seems like a lot.
It does seem like a lot. And, here's this baby just coming into the world. And the first thing you're doing is injecting all these chemicals into it, It just doesn't seem right.
So food allergies and autoimmune disorders. I have a nephew who has all his skin breaking out and whatever, and she takes him in, and she comes back with this list of like 7 things.
Wow.
He's 1 year old. I'm like, well, what has he been doing for his 1 year?
Have you been rolling the kid in nuclear waste or something?
Yeah. So obviously it's not from environmental. He's not out there eating pesticides. He's basically been on breast milk until a couple of months ago, and then he's just being introduced to fresh fruits and vegetables.
But apparently the poor moms are eating all this stuff, eating these microplastics and everything that's going through the breast milk, getting into their kids.
Yes. The first thing they said was they told her to stop having dairy.
Right.
And so the things that they have to cut out of his diet, really they have to cut out of her diet.
Yeah.
But how did we get here?
Right.
I didn't hear of a peanut allergy until I was 30 years old.
Yeah. And back when we were kids, moms didn't have to worry about any of that kind of stuff. Do you remember nowadays you can't take certain foods to school, like for a party or something, because there are so many kids with peanut allergies.
Wheat allergy.
There was none of that stuff.
I never heard of such a. All right, hold on. So what is MAHA doing? One thing. I've got this encouraging article here is about how states are seizing the initiative.
Okay, good.
Because I love that the federal top-down approach. Instead, what it's done is it's given enough air to the topic that finally the people who are on his side, who've not been listened to, now you've got the bully pulpit of RFK and MAHA getting people's attention, and so now all of these things are getting passed in. West Virginia is taking soda out of the food stand. Yeah, let me just talk about that. Can we get EBT? Can you not buy ding dongs and soda with EBT? Is that? Yeah. So, and I love this one. If Californian Democrats are going to address a problem, who needs to be taken care of first? Oh, improving the food quality for incarcerated people.
Of course.
So it's incarcerated people, then illegal aliens, then the indigent, and then maybe if there's any money left over, the people who pay all the taxes and go to work and don't commit any crimes. Yeah. Then they get last consideration. But, I mean, they're doing something. It says the whole mindset has shifted. This is the Utah governor who is banning artificial dyes in public schools. So there's all kinds of states taking the initiative.
Well, it's good that there's finally enough attention on it that people are starting to say, okay, maybe we should look at this and do something.
The other thing that's good about that is then it can be coming from, in your blue states, it's coming from your blue governor. Yeah. As opposed to the TDS, which says, where's it coming from?
Right. Oh, no.
Oh, it came from the Trump administration?
Right. It must be
I'd rather eat cancer.
Well, and there are a lot of people who would rather.
So I love that. In my research, that was the most encouraging thing was that states are really taking the initiative. So MAHA how is it going to address?
Well, so they have these next steps. They want to enhance they want to improve research, reproducibility, and post-marketing drug safety surveillance. They want to develop AI-powered surveillance and real-world data platforms to monitor health trends. I'm not sure I love that. Right. They want to fund studies on whole food diets and other things. So basically what they're doing right now is they're doing a lot more research to try to figure out, because, for example,
and they've taken actions like cutting down vaccine schedules.
Yes. And so and trying to get rid of food dyes and other kinds of things that we already know.
So I am not the kind of guy. If anybody says to me, well, the way they do things in Europe, my ears close up.
Exactly. I'm like, I don't care what they do in Europe.
But
on this point, maybe
I'm like, wait a minute. Well, why are we eating poison and they're not?
Yes.
Do we have a good reason to be eating this garbage? Eating this kind of garbage. So, in a sense, it's not a bad place to look, especially when
I'm glad that they're going to be doing more research on figuring out why has autism increased so much. Some people will say it's just because of testing. Okay, fine. Let's see if the research bears that out. I can't believe that it's that. But let's figure out what's going on. There's all kinds of potential causes for the increase in autism. Let's do some research and find out. So I'm glad people are finally looking at it. But how long is it going to be before they start looking at the question of testosterone and sperm count?
Yeah, I mean, hopefully this will...
It'll get in the mix.
This will be in the mix.
It'll be in the mix, yeah.
So, I'm surprised. And I did not see this coming, when his presidential platform, basically, was going to be making America healthy, right? And it's like, that's kind of bold.
Do you remember
weird
that
approach? And then he gets folded in. He's a Democrat and a Kennedy and gets folded into the Trump administration. And boom, boom, boom. You got Dr. Oz running some other agency.
Yeah. Do you remember that movie? It was many years ago. The guy who plays Aragorn, Viggo Mortensen, is a homeschooling dad. And you remember that one? Yeah.
Yes. He teaches the kids Esperanto.
Yeah, but he also teaches them self-sufficiency. And there's one time where they're climbing up these rocks, and this one kid is caught. And he's like, Dad, help me. And he's like, I'm not going to help you. Right. And there's not going to be somebody swooping in to help you. You got to deal with it. That's pretty harsh.
Yeah.
But one of the big messages to me about all this is we kind of have this idea that there's somebody out there looking out for us. Right. There is not.
Yes.
These problems have been going on for decades. And the people who supposedly are supposed to be looking out for this stuff and looking out for us are not looking out for us.
Yes, and back to your original point about the industrial complexes
Yeah.
are not looking out for you.
No, they are not.
So this
You,
is
you
good.
are on your own. Sorry.
Is on your own, and hopefully we'll get some state action, some federal action, and
We'll
maybe
see.
and just to get people thinking about it, just
Yeah.
going, you know what, maybe I should just eat. What do they say? Eat from the perimeter of the grocery
Yeah,
store.
don't eat them. Yeah, so in the meantime,
Yeah.
don't wait for them to start eating more healthy and yourself.
Yeah, right. And if
Put the phone down,
one
take a
small
jog.
simple item has 55 ingredients on it, I don't know, maybe find something else.
Maybe get something else. Eat an apple instead. Cheers. Thanks so much for listening to Beer and Conversation with Pigweed and Crowhill. Remember to visit us at pigweedandcrowhill.com or send us an email at pigweedshow@gmail.com.